I'm Joe LaMonaco. Welcome to The Truth from Ruth. Hello, Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals.
Thank you, Joe.
Good to see you, Miss Ruth. Welcome back. Ruth joins us once a month. Now, in the meantime, though, you can always find her on digginfordeals.com. You can find her on the socials, and we encourage you to connect with Ruth, okay? We're going to be talking about real estate, yes. We're also going to be talking, we're going to bring in a little part of the second half of what Ruth does. It's not just about real estate. It's about everything that goes into the real estate as well. The emotional connections, your things, because we're going to be talking about a specific topic on this month's edition of The Truth with Ruth. And that's about aging in place. That's about downsizing. That's about, when I was thinking about this, Ruth, I thought to myself, we're going to talk a lot about the ins and outs and the particulars and the real estate part of it, but I think what we're going to find as a theme that goes through all of this stuff is how much emotional baggage is attached to the physical place and to the things that are in a house. I think that's something that's probably going to wind up coming out during our conversation.
Absolutely, Joe, but emotional baggage is one thing. Mm-hmm. The nuts and bolts of aging in place are another.
It sounds like an easy thing, right? It doesn't sound so easy, aging in place. I get older, and I just stay where I am.
Exactly, but that doesn't necessarily happen that way. It takes planning. It takes planning to be comfortable. It takes planning to be secure. And it takes planning to make it happen.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like, though, it seems like for those of us on the outside world, and for those of us who are getting older, because every day we take another day older, get another year older, it just seems like it should be something that naturally happens. And I think too few of us think about, I really do need to talk with someone maybe. I really do need to have a plan for how I'm going to make this space that maybe I've been in for 30, 40, 50 years, raise my kids, have been through multiple generations.
Yes,
how am I going to make that work for me as opposed to me just working within the space that I'm in?
Yes, I agree. And it is important for individuals who want to age in place. All of us want to age in place, but we have to evaluate our homes, we have to evaluate our finances, and we have to evaluate what kind of emotional support we need to continue living in our homes. And we need to do that a little bit earlier before a crisis occurs. Once a crisis occurs, now you may be forced into uncomfortable living arrangements. And the point of aging in place is to remain comfortable and independent.
Let's break it down a little bit then. What do you think are some of those aspects that people don't think about? Let's just talk about design. Let's talk about home design as a good starting point. Now, I work within my house. I understand that there are things that I just do as a regular course of my day, like going up and down stairs, where the laundry is, how accessible my kitchen or bathroom may be. So let's talk about those design elements or things that maybe are comfortable for us right now, but we have to be thinking down the road as to what might change.
Yes. And here's the truth. The typical home in our area in Western New York State was not designed for aging in place. It was not designed for seniors. If you have a laundry in your basement, not designed for seniors. If you are bathing in a bathtub and you have to step into it, not designed for seniors. There are financial things that we need to think about. There are emotional things, and there are home modifications or repairs that need to be made. And those are what we need to talk about with seniors ahead of time to get them from point A to point B.
You mentioned that homes in our area, to your experience, weren't designed with seniors in mind.
Aren't.
I mean, you got to figure, like, say, for example, my home was built in the late 1920s.
Yes.
What was life expectancy like in the late 1920s compared to where it is 100 years later? We're living longer. And yes, we do get an attachment to where we are. And the prospect of having to start all over again in a new home wherever that is, an apartment, condominium, maybe it's a smaller house, can be a little bit daunting to look at, not just from a real estate perspective, from a life perspective. It can often be, quite a challenge that you don't even want to take on.
And the truth of the matter is it doesn't have to be. There are public organizations, there are family and friends that can assist with this, and there are nonprofits that are out there and are ready, willing, and able to help seniors stay in their homes. We want you to stay in your home. But if your home becomes a trap for you, and your home is either emotionally isolating you, your location may be isolating you, or your physically, the home modifications are required to stay in your home. How do you make those happen? How do you identify them, and how do you make them happen?
And how do you identify where it makes sense if you do, say, need to make an investment in changing something physically within your home? How do you make the necessary plan as to, okay, well, what do I do first? What's most important? Am I going for function over style? I want a pretty home. I want to still enjoy the look of my home, but yet I also know that there are certain things that I might have to compromise on. And that ties back into that emotional part of it too, because you're going to have to balance both sides of it to say, how am I going to make this space really work for me so that I can feel comfortable and be safe in my own home?
And who is going to assist with that? Family, friends, government. There are government programs. New York State has an entire office for the aged, which is just chock full of ideas and resources for seniors to remain in your home.
Yeah, and I think that is really important, that there are more options. I think that's really what we're talking about, is that there are additional options, and it's not just, well, I get to a certain point and I can't function here or don't feel that I can function here. I have to go to an apartment, an assisted living community, something along those lines. I have to uproot my life and move it somewhere else. But there are more resources potentially. And I think, generationally, we've learned a lot from mistakes that others have made to be able to give this current generation the best possible knowledge to say, here's what we can do. Now you have 4 or 5 options as opposed to just one that you might have thought you had.
And generally, the baby boomer generation is financially able to make those modifications, to move if necessary, and to bring in the support people that they need to help them identify the problems.
You'll find Ruth Rowe Campbell at Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com. This is the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour, and on this episode, we are talking about aging in place, some of the hidden truths. And coming up next, what are the 3 critical questions that you need to be asking yourself about your space? Can I age in place in my space? Does it need to be modified to meet me where I am? And how am I going to be able to afford all of this? There's a lot of questions you need to ask. We're going to pick those all apart with Ruth Rowe Campbell when we continue on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. That's next on News Radio WHAM 1180. Welcome back to the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. Ruth is Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com. That's where you find her, and you can follow her on the socials too. In fact, we want you to follow us on the socials. Very easy to do. And then you'll know what Ruth is up to. You'll be able to get additional content from Ruth because she's very busy and she's out there and she's trying to make sure that you're getting good information, not only at digginfordeals.com, but on the socials. You want to interact? You can email us. You got a question you want Ruth to answer on a future episode, go to digginfordeals.com or tag us on the socials and we'll find it there because in future episodes, we want to know what you want to know. Not only about this topic we're talking about today, which is aging in place, a real specific topic, but we talk a lot about real estate. We're going to talk a lot about the value of things, getting top value for sellers. Maybe you have a collection. What do you do? Or you are downsizing. What do you do with the things in your home? All of that stuff that has to do with real estate and things that are tangentially related to it. Ruth would be happy to answer. So head over to digginfordeals.com and follow us on the socials. All right, Ruth, 3 critical questions I want to ask you about aging in place from your perspective. We're going to start with number 1, and that's about the physical layout of the house. We touched a little bit about it. in our first section, that houses in this area especially were not designed for people to age in place. So the question number one is your home ready? Is the layout appropriate?
Absolutely. Boomers in this generation need one-level living. Now, you could have a two-family house and still have one-level living if you want to dedicate some time to rearrange your lifestyle. There's no need to have to go upstairs. You're going to need a first-floor bathroom. You're going to need grab bars in your bathroom, and you're going to need generally wider doorways in case you are in a wheelchair or you need assistance of that sort. So those are the items that we need to look at for seniors. If you're in, like I said before, if you're going down into your basement to do laundry, you need to get a first floor laundry. And these are things that we can plan for. These are things that seniors can plan for. And there are all kinds of organizations out there, family and friends can help, that will assist.
And also, not only from, we're going to talk about financials next, but also from a design point of view, you might not be able to look at your current home and say, I can visualize where a first floor laundry would go. A change in a layout, where I could put a bathroom on the first floor. You might not be able to see it, but there are resources out there as well and other professionals that can help you expand your eye, I guess maybe is the best way, because some people can't really visualize. You can tell them something and they can't see it in the space until it's actually in the space.
Yes, and I have seen, I'm affiliated with the Veterans Administration, and I'm aware that they have a program which will help you do that, help you visualize where your needs are for first floor living. And also, if you are low income or their desire is to keep you in your home, the Veterans Administration, they will do the modifications for you. You have to be a veteran, you have to be somewhat homebound, but this is just an example of how people can get the help they need.
And it really comes down to ask the question. If you're working with someone, don't be afraid to ask the question, can you help with design assistance, not just financial assistance or not just, connecting you with resources. Even if they say no, they may know of another organization or another person that can assist you in that regard. So ask the question is basically what we get to.
Absolutely.
Question number 2 in the 3 critical questions about whether your home is ready for you to age in place is, of course, affordability. Not only the changes that might need to be made, but also let's start broadly about the house. You own a home, I own a home, and we realize that you got to take care of it on a daily basis, and sometimes that can be prohibitive when it comes to aging in place.
There is maintenance. We all know that in home ownership. We've all put in roofs.
Sweat equity on it.
We've all done all this. But there's a scary secret that I see out there.
Okay.
As a broker working with people, as an appraiser working with people, and it's that there are seniors who do not have their house paid for.
Really?
They may have small mortgages, but they're still paying a mortgage. This is because they've helped their family. They've helped friends. They've taken money out for equity. And the point that needs to be made to them is sometimes the value of the home is so high in comparison to the mortgage that it's better to sell financially and put the money in your pocket and move to a lower cost apartment. There are senior apartments available that are subsidized and delightful to live in. I've seen them, believe me, Joe.
So in that case, and this is just one example from a financial standpoint, but it is good then to work with, maybe they bring you in, Ruth, for them to be able to say, okay, well, here's the value of your home. Let's compare your financials.
They have no knowledge of it.
And also to help your clients or people that you might work with to step back from that emotional perspective and attachment. And that's not an easy thing to do, is it?
It is not.
For you to pull someone back to say, let's look at it as a piece of property, as a thing, not that has some larger attachment to your life. Because, again, as we mentioned at the outset of the show, some people have decades and generations in the same place.
And let's say vice versa, that they are determined to stay in their home and they have a beautiful one-level floor plan, but they need a better bathroom. They need to do that. Can you take the money out of your house financially to do it? Mm-hmm. Is that a smart thing to do?
Yeah. It would come down to that. Is it worth it? More advantageous, I should say, to sell the home and go somewhere else? Can the upgrades be done affordably? Can you balance debt against, if you have to potentially go into debt? So there's a lot of financial questions that do need to be asked here.
And it all comes down to the health and well-being of the individual.
Mm-hmm. And I think it goes into question number 3 on that is, do you have a support system? And that's critical here because, and I'm seeing it happen with my folks, and thank goodness they live in not here, and they have a support network where they are, and I'm very grateful for that because as they age, they have stayed at home and they've chose to do that. And they also have the people there that are able to give them a hand when my dad can't keep up anymore.
That is a whole topic for the next segment.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done with resources that are available external to your family situation. And if you've got the right support and you've got the right resources and the house then works for you physically.
And you've done your planning.
Okay. And you've done your planning. Maybe you've also downsized things that are in the home that you no longer need, and you can put some money back in your pocket to help pay for some of these costs. Ruth can handle both ends of the equation. It's two sides of the coin. At Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisal, she can handle not only real estate transactions. Maybe you do need to sell your home to go somewhere else because that makes sense for you, both physically and financially. But maybe you've said, you know what, I've got way too many things in here. And some of these things might have value. I don't know. But if they do, I need to get some assistance in sending them to new places. And Ruth can do exactly that thing. You can do that as well. Ruth can look at those collections or look at those objects and say, well, how are we going to maximize return for that? All of that is to say, you go to digginfordeals.com, and that's where you find Ruth Rowe Campbell at Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals, and you can talk to her directly right through the website. You can follow on the socials, too. You can interact there. You can get more information than we share on this show. And, of course, you can always catch up on this show and our last episode, which is also on demand at digginfordeals.com. So it's all right there for you to get the resources that you need. All right, stick around. We're at the halfway point. We're going to come back and keep talking about aging in place and the support that it takes in order for you to continue to age in place. That is next when we continue on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour here on News Radio WHAM 1180. Thanks for staying with us on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour with Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com. You can find her there. You can interact with her there. You can see what is new, what Ruth has for auctions, not only collections and collectibles, but real estate as well. Maybe you are thinking, you know what? I do need to sell my home. That is my plan. You can utilize the services of a seller's agent in an auction environment for you to maximize return on your property. How do you do that? Go to digginfordeals.com. And there's a wealth of information there. And then follow on the socials because there's even more information there. Or keep listening because once a month, Ruth will be here with another topic for us to unpack on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. So she will be here every single month to talk about a lot of topics that have to do not only with real estate, but also with collections. And, of course, maximizing your return on the things that you have worked hard for your entire life. And your property is one of them. And if you are an aging person, and we've been talking about aging in place and some of those solutions and things and next steps that we need to sort of set you up for. We unpacked a lot of information, and there's plenty more that we can talk about. you've asked yourself those questions. Is my home ready? Can I afford this? Do I have the support system, not only within my community, but in my family? Now you've got to figure out, well, what am I going to do next? Now you have to execute that plan. It's all theoretical, and then rubber meets the road.
And also, where is your house located?
Okay.
Is it located, like you referred to in the previous segment, in an area where support people are available? Or is your house the very thing that is isolating you and damaging your mental health?
Okay.
Very important here.
And when you think about Western New York as an example, we have a wide variety of areas where people live. You look into places like, especially Ontario or Wayne County as an example, or even to our west over towards Orleans and Genesee and Wyoming, and it's very spread out. There aren't many consolidated areas of habitation like they are in Monroe County or in many places within Monroe County. You can very well be like, I love my home, but I'm in the middle of nowhere.
I'm in the middle of nowhere.
I've got 100
isolated.
acres and I've got a house on it and I'm surrounded by land and nobody else. And it's difficult, even in the best of situations, to get things done there.
That is true. And it's important to move. In the olden days, the farmers on the farm, they used to leave their land to the sons and family, and they used to move to the village. Now, there was a reason why they did that. Because there were services and people and sidewalks, public water, natural gas, things that we take for granted now, but were important then, they're important now.
All right. Sorry, so let's talk more about these solutions and next steps then.
Yes. Thank you, Joe. Okay. It's important for people to know that there's something called aging with dignity. And what is aging with dignity? It is creating a comfortable, safe, and independent life. Each one of those is important. Your comfort, your safety, and your independence. If any one of those three areas is not working for you, then you need to call in the big guns to help. You need to call in your family, your friends. You need to call in government or the nonprofits to analyze your situation and figure out, be honest, to analyze your health and figure out what could be done to fix the situation. Emotional and social costs are very important. Mental health is important as physical health, and the solutions and options are out there. I have lists and lists of agencies that can help. And there, do not be isolated by technology. Technology is a big isolator these days. These are organizations that answer their phone. If you use email, that's great, but you don't have to feel like isolated from society, from help.
I want to just, before we move on with the other topics you want to talk about here, I think when it comes to mental health, that part of mental health, emotional health, in all of these decisions that are being made, I think many people might look at it as a merely location or financial decision. And maybe even their emotional health or their mental health and how stable they're going to be if they stay in place doesn't even enter into the conversation. And we need to bring it into the conversation and give it equal weight.
Yes.
I believe
yes.
with the financial and the location. It really does play a very important role, and you can't discount what being, say, in the middle of a very rural area without many neighbors as opposed to being in
you have loved all your life.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, but now you can no longer maintain it. Number one, it's difficult to maintain. Snow plowing, lawn mowing, you name it. Yep. And number two, you may be isolated, or you may just have another location that is easier to live in. Yeah. Think about these things. They're important, and take steps today to create a solid foundation for aging in place tomorrow.
Yeah. I like that. That's well done. Basement reference.
Thank you.
That's very good. All right, keep going. What else do we need to worry about and be thinking about?
Something that I want to mention where boomers in the boomer age generation are living in place, but there is somebody else in your network that is a problem for you, somebody who is predatory.
Okay.
This happens. And if you have an individual who is in your checking account, in your personal life, in any way bullying you, you need to reach out to your medical doctor immediately and report these things, because this condition is isolating you and it is disturbing your mental health. It's making you unhappy.
And that goes back to what we just talked about and how important that is in the overall picture of whether you can stay where you are in a place maybe that you have been for a long time, that you feel comfortable in, where it's just, and this is my house. I know where everything is. Mm-hmm. It's all set up the way I want it. But there can be an external component which should be given the right amount of weight. And sometimes you need that external perspective. We talked earlier in the show about how important it is to sometimes have someone come in who can widen your view, because in a lot of cases, those of us who own property or we've been there for a long time, or maybe have parents who've been in their home for a long time, they tend to put the blinders on a little bit.
Even harassing phone calls. Many seniors that I've sat with are actually tormented. They're afraid to answer their phone because of predatory phone calls. And not to get too deep into the weeds on this, Joe, but what I'm saying is reach out to someone. Let somebody know if there is a problem with a family member, a friend, anything, a company that is harassing you. Let them know. Let your doctor know.
Just tell somebody. I would suspect you've had offhanded conversations talking real estate with somebody, and they may have let out, or just in casual passing conversation have mentioned something about that. And I know you've got plenty of contacts with people that you've worked with before that you can say, hey, look, have you ever thought to call XYZ? Mm-hmm. Sometimes just a passing conversation with someone like that can be very illuminating.
And you don't have to feel afraid, because the New York State Office for the Aging can help you. Even my own mother was God bless her, before she passed away. She spent years working as a foster grandparent. And it was hilarious. It was the only volunteer job that you got paid for. And it was great. She spent 3 or 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, working with children in a nursery care situation. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's nice to be a grandma for a lots of people. We're going to take a break here, our final break of the show. This is the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour on NewsRadio WHAM 1180. We are talking about aging in place. We are talking about those things that you might need to consider, or you might not know about when it comes to deciding, do I stay where I am? Do I sell my home? Do I modify my home? What are those things that need to be taken into account when you make a plan and take those next steps? You can find Ruth Rowe Campbell to have a conversation about any of this at digginfordeals.com. You can reach Ruth right there from the site, or you can just give her a call. Phone number, contact information is all there at digginfordeals.com. Yes, Ruth is behind the phone, and yes, it is a real person who will answer that call, okay? So if you do need to talk to someone, head over to digginfordeals.com, give her a holler, follow on the socials as well. We want you to interact with us. We want you to, if you got questions, if you want things, want to know stuff, want to talk about a topic, we'd be happy to take all of that from you. Just go to digginfordeals.com, send us an email, or hang out with us on the socials, all right? You'll learn something there while you're at it. Stick around. We're going to take our final break, and we'll come back to wrap things up on this edition of the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. That's next on News Radio WHAM 1180. Back to wrap things up on this month's edition of the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour with Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals at digginfordeals.com. DIGGIN for deals.com. You can find Ruth there. You can call her at the office. Phone number, contact information's all there. Follow on the socials as well. You get additional stuff from Ruth, and you can also interact with us there. If you got a topic you'd like to suggest for a future episode, got a question you want us to tackle on a future episode, head over to the socials or on the website. ask it. We would love to hear from you about what you would like to know about. We've been talking in this month's episode about aging in place. And of course, my two questions to start off with. We're going to talk about a resource in just a second here, but so I want to talk about, you're a real estate professional as
Yes,
well.
yes.
How does a real estate professional then help or potentially help someone navigate this process? Because there's a lot
daunting.
at play. Yeah.
It's daunting.
But let's talk about it from your perspective then. If we're calling a real estate professional, how can they help, or what's the best utilization?
Well, the first thing you want to do is make sure that the real estate professional can help you and is not there in any kind of predatory manner. Okay, number one, they're just looking, and there are real estate professionals that are designated in the area of senior services.
Okay.
So you're looking for a needle in a haystack here. But they can look at your layout. They can design. They can recommend a design. They have all kinds of professionals who will come in and give you quotes for installing grab bars, redoing your bathroom, helping you with your first floor living area. If you need to bring your laundry upstairs, whatever is needed, real estate agents can help you. They can also help you with financials.
Okay.
Real estate agents have connections to the banking industry, and they're front and center with anything you need.
And just coming back to something we talked about earlier, if, say, someone is working with you, you can come in and give them a fair appraisal on their property,
Absolutely.
on their house.
I'm an appraiser.
And then,
valuation, very important.
And then you can understand, okay, well, now I can look at it as a financial decision as well as, it is an emotional decision, of course, but you can look at it from a financial decision. You might realize it could benefit me to sell my property and move, or I've seen the numbers. Now I know it benefits me to update and upgrade my home and stay here.
Now, let's just talk about that for a minute,
Okay.
Joe, because we have been in a booming seller's market for years. Many individuals that I meet with are astounded at the value of their home.
Mm-hmm.
Homes that they purchased for $100,000 or $50,000 are now worth $500,000. So there's a big decision that needs to be there. What can you do with your equity? How much equity do you have? And what is your house really going to sell for?
Right. And also, working with a real estate professional, they can let you know about what the market would be like if you were to sell your home and have to find another piece of property to move into, because that's how the market is. Working with a real estate professional can be a great asset, not only for valuation, but for next steps if you do choose to relocate into something that is better for you. You can also utilize the services of one of our pals here at News Radio WHAM 1180, and that's Jim Salmon from the Home Repair Clinic.
Oh, I love Jim. He is a crackerjack. And people know him as a radio personality, but newsflash, he is a home inspector. And he would love to be able to visit your home, get to know you, see where those modifications can be made. He has a cadre of trusted individuals, contractors who can make things happen. So there is no need, senior citizens like me, to stay by yourself. Reach out to Jim. Let him know that you heard the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour and you need his assistance.
Yeah, and if an inspection is not just something that happens around real estate transactions. An inspection is knowledge for you as property owner to know about the condition of your home as it stands now with a critical eye, so that you will understand, if I do choose to stay, I have layers of things potentially that are going to need to be done, because Jim can look at it from a structural standpoint as well as from a convenience standpoint, and then also provide a great resource to say, well, who do I talk to next? And knowing where to get a contractor that specializes in X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
But and it's also, I also want to say, working with Jim especially is affordable. It is affordable to get a home inspection for knowledge, and Jim is very thorough. He's done them for me in the past, and I value having that information.
And it's not just a home inspection. It's your home. He gets to know you. He sees what your needs are, and he can make recommendations.
Yeah. And you do need, this all goes back to part of that plan we talked about right at the beginning of the show, so we're going to circle all the way back. what's your position on when to start making the plan and those important component pieces that you really should have as part of your plan as soon as you can?
One word would be early. Okay, now it does depend on your financials.
Okay.
But if you are over 55, you should be planning for aging in place.
Okay.
Either you're going to stay in your home, you're going to go into something called independent living. Very nice, very comfortable. Everything is done for you, and you maintain your independence. So I would say early.
It's kind of like, they talk to us in our mid-50s, and I am in my mid-50s, about, do you have your will? Do you have, your documents in place? Do you have your all your beneficiaries lined up? One of the things, and until this conversation we've had here that I've never heard about, is about long-range planning on the physical nature of your home and what you should be doing when you don't have a deadline. You don't have a time crunch. The worst thing you can do about deciding what happens with somebody's estate is after they've passed or they're incapacitated and they can't do anything about it. Think about this as part of those long-range plans that you need to have as part of how you're going to be comfortable and mentally and emotionally and physically secure in the space that you're in, should you choose to stay there.
Doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing will end in a crisis.
Yeah.
There will be a crisis. We know this. And then you'll lose control of your own future.
Yeah. Have a plan. Keep it flexible, knowing that it could have to change at the drop of a hat. And start to get to know the professionals. Maybe you don't need Ruth's services right now, but she'd be happy to have a conversation with you now when you don't need her immediately, so that you can make the choice to say, hey, okay, it's time. Can we pick up where we left off?
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I'd love to.
And also to pick people about the resources that are available out there, because I don't know. I know some people, but I don't know everything. And you've talked to me about things that you have worked with your clients, maybe, again, in those offhanded conversations that have built a valuable resource network that can be
success stories.
Yeah, that other people can then take advantage of.
And people like to hear the stories.
Yeah. And they like to know that other people are facing the same sorts of situation.
Yes, we all are.
You're not alone, okay? And in the final minute that we have here, I just want to remind folks that we've talked a lot about one particular topic, but Ruth Rowe Campbell at Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals is a certified real estate agent, and she is an auctioneer, and she's got a great Rolodex of resources. So no matter where you are in your planning process, if you want to bring in an expert pair of eyes, reach out to Ruth at digginfordeals.com. Contact information is right there. You can give her a holler. Ruth will answer the phone. Trust me, you can talk to her. She is a real person. Or interact on the socials and ask questions, and Ruth will get back to you, okay? So start making the plan now. That's what I'm going to do. As a result of this, that's what I'm going to start doing. Is start to look at my house and say, where do I need to make some targeted moves, so that I've always told my wife, I said, look, we're going to stay here till neither one of us can climb the stairs, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Well, maybe you ought to put up a handrail on those stairs, dear.
Maybe I ought to put in an elevator or a rope ladder. Ruth Rowe Campbell will be back with us next month.
Talking about real estate,
we're gonna
101, how to put more money in your pocket.
That's coming up next month on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour. You can find past shows then at digginfordeals.com and follow Ruth on the socials. I'm Joe LaMonaco with Ruth Rowe Campbell from Rowe Realty Auctions and Appraisals. Thanks for spending time with us on the Truth from Ruth Radio Hour on News Radio WHAM 1180.